Hi and welcome to another story, and today we have part 4 of Lola Rose by Jacqueline Wilson, continuing from chapter 9, New Friends. So now we were the Luck family, Victoria, Kendall and Lola Rose, and we had a whole new life going for us. It was strange how quickly it stopped feeling new. After a few weeks it was weird thinking back to the old life. I didn't feel fussed when someone asked me my name and wanted to know where I lived. I felt like I'd been Lola Rose forever. I could have grown up in Flexley Park and been at Lark Rise Primary all my school life. Harpreet was the sort of best friend I'd always longed for. We sat next to each other in class and helped each other with all our work. She was brilliant at maths, at IT and science. I'm okay at English and better at art, so it worked a treat. Miss Balsam did us do a special collage lesson. She brought in a huge pile of old magazines for us to cut up. She suggested we do a picture with a family theme. Harpreet flipped through a big glossy magazine, trying to find photos of people who looked like her family. She had a huge family. Her mum and dad, a little sister, a big sister, 2 big brothers and hundreds of aunties and uncles and cousins, and her grandma and grandpa, out in India. She started moaning because all the people in the photos were too pink. You can colour them with brown felt pen if you like, or maybe you can find stuff that kind of represents your family, I said. Like what? Said Harpreet. Like, you could find someone with a big smiley mouth and cut it out, and then find a white rabbit and a top hat, and that could be your dad, I said. I loved Harpreet's funny dad. He made a big fuss of me and did all those daft conjuring tricks, pretending to find eggs behind my ears and a string of coloured hankies from the sleeve of my new jacket. What about his body? Said Harpreet, who didn't quite get it. You don't need to show the actual people. Look, your mum could be represented by lots of gold jewellery and a television set because she can't miss any of her soaps. Your brother Amrit could be a state-of-the-art computer, right? What shall I be? Said Harpreet. You can be sweets and a long plait and lots of little numbers because you're good at maths. And you could find 2 linked hands and colour friendship bracelets around the wrists, and they could be you and me. You have such good ideas, Lola Rose, said Harpreet. I'm so lucky having you as my friend. I helped Harpreet stick all her family on a bright pink background with a border of red hearts and yellow flowers. We outlined everything with gold glitter pen. It looked lovely. I can't wait to show Dad, said Harpreet. I bet he'll frame it and hang it on the lounge. She paused. What about your dad, Lola Rose? I haven't got one, I said. I selected a large piece of turquoise paper for my own collage. You must have had a dad once, said Harpreet. What's that blue for? Is that going to be sky? It's going to be water, I said. I cut out a pink girl and added bright yellow hair way down past her waist. I fashioned a tail from a photo of green grass and made her into a mermaid. I cut little red roses for her hair and wound them round and round her long tail in a garland. I stuck her up at the top of the water, waving to a little green frog leaping up and down on a lily pad. I searched for a woman pretty enough to be Mum, but I couldn't find one, so I turned a beautiful white statue into a white water nymph. I added lots of more golden curls and inked tiny black musical notes coming out of her parted lips. I cut out more red roses, a great fluttering drift of them, and stuck them in a big red heart around the mermaid and the frog and the statue. It looked like it was keeping them safe. The rest of the blue paper looked a bit bare, so I stuck on some buried treasure and a little aeroplane sailing like a ship, an ice lolly swimming along like a shoal of fish. I wanted to stop there, but I couldn't. I cut out a shark from a nature magazine. I didn't like touching it with my fingers, even though I knew it was only paper. I didn't want it in my picture. I wanted to rip it into little bits. But I stuck it down right at the very bottom of the page. It was looking up through the water at the 3 people caged in the heart. That looks scary, said Harpreet. It did look much too scary. I tried to ease the shark off the paper, but the glue stuck fast. I tried pulling. Don't rip up your lovely picture, said Harpreet. You'll spoil it. I don't like the shark, I said. I'm going to cover him up. I found a picture of some houses. I started cutting out a whole row of them, complete with little gardens. I'm going to have an underwater buried village, I said. I arranged it right along the bottom of the page, covering up every tooth and fin and scale. I put shells and seaweed hedges in the gardens and stuck anchors on the top of every roof as television aerials. I stuck and stuck until the bottom of my picture was twice as thick as the top. But it didn't stop me worrying about the shark swimming silently in and out of the windows and doors, looking for his family. I dreamed about the shark at night. I couldn't get back to sleep, even though I huddled close to Mum. I hated her being out so much. I put Kendall to bed about 8, but I stayed up until Mum came home, even though she sometimes didn't make it back till midnight. You should go to sleep, Lola Rose, you silly girl, Mum said, rubbing her finger under my eyes. Look at those dark circles. You look like a little panda. You're a bad, bad girl. But she didn't get cross with me. She was always in a good mood now when she came home from the pub. It wasn't just the drinks her customers bought her. I was scared she might have started a thing with the manager, Barry. She seemed to be very thick with him, especially since they had a karaoke night and Mum sang a special Kylie medley. He said I'm every bit as good as Kylie, and he said my bum's just as good as hers too, Mum said, dancing around the bedroom in her underwear. Mum? He says he might give me a regular singing spot. He's got this mad idea that I could stand on top of the bar counter, prance around a bit. Mum waggled her bum, held her hairbrush like a mic, demonstrating. Mum! Your face, Lola Rose, said Mum. Look, darling, if I've got a nice voice, there's no reason why I shouldn't show it off. It sounds like this Barry guy is more interested in your nice bum, I said sourly. Ooh, you cheeky girl, said Mum, pretending she was going to smack my bum with the hairbrush. Nah, old Barry's a sweetheart, but he's too much under his wife's thumb. She doesn't mind the singing idea if it brings in more customers, but she'll make sure Barry behaves himself. Not that I'd let him get anywhere. He's way too old and dull for me. I've got other fish to fry. Mum grinned at herself in the dressing table mirror we bought at the weekend at a hospice shop. My stomach squeezed. What do you mean, other fish to fry? I said. It's just a silly expression, sweetheart. Take no notice, said Mum, brushing her hair. Have you got a new boyfriend? No. Well, not exactly. You can't call him a boyfriend. We've not even been out together, but he's interested, put it that way. Well, a number of the guys down the pub have chatted me up, as a matter of fact, but Jake's different. Jake? He is gorgeous, Lola Rose. He's an artist. He says he wants to paint my portrait. Imagine, I might find myself hanging in an art gallery one day. It's Jake who's the oil painting, though. He's got this dark, thick, blonde hair, quite long, as lovely as a girl's, but there's nothing girly about Jake, oh no. My heart was beating so fast I felt dizzy. Mum, don't. I was in such a panic, I didn't think what I was saying. What if Dad finds out? Mum stared at me. Dad, she said. She acted like she'd forgotten all about him. Your dad's got nothing to do with it, darling. He's in the past, over and done with. We'll never see him again. But I screwed up my face, struggling. I didn't know why I felt in such a panic. That's what I wanted to hear, wasn't it? I didn't want to see Dad, but it seemed so weird for Mum to talk about him as if he was an old film she could barely remember. Dad had always come first with her. Don't you love him any more? I said, as Mum got into bed. She wasn't listening properly, humming under her breath. You what? Do I love Jake? It's early days, darling, early days. I said, do you love Dad? Shh, don't shout. You'll wake Kendall. Why are you going on about your dad, for God's sake? Don't you remember what he was like? He's left me with lots of little mementos, look. Mum tapped the caps on her teeth. Yeah, I know, Mum. But that's just it. Why are you taking up with another guy when you've only just left Dad? Why can't you be happy with Kendall and me? Oh, grow up, Janie. Sorry, Lola Rose. I do act grown up. You know I do, I said, turning my back on her. Ooh, don't go in a huff, sweetheart. Mum cuddled up to me. I tried to pull away, stiff as a board. Mum tickled me until I squealed and doubled up. Shh, shh, said Mum, though she was giggling too. She cuddled in quick, and this time I didn't wriggle away. I just mean, when you are grown up, you'll understand. I love you and little Kenny with all my heart, darling, but I need a man too. Life isn't worth living if you don't have someone to make your heart flutter. You'll see when you're older. I was sure I wouldn't. My heart had done enough fluttering to last me a lifetime. I didn't think I'd ever want a man, especially not the kind of guy my mum liked. I hoped this Jake would fade out of sight as quickly as the footballer, but Mum started going out with him on her nights off. When she was working, he stayed till closing time and then walked her home. He came into our flat sometimes. Whenever I heard 2 lots of footsteps, I snapped the light off quick and pretended to be asleep. I wasn't in any hurry to meet him. I was very glad we only had 1 bedroom and Kendall and I were sprawled right across the only bed. But then he came round on Sunday, Mum's day off. I should have suspected something. Mum got up early and showered and shampooed for ages. She got dressed in a new tiny turquoise top that showed off her navel diamond and put on her tight white jeans. Usually on Sundays we had a long lie-in until 11 or 12 and then Mum just muddled around the house barefoot, a big cardi over her nightie. But that Sunday Mum nagged at Kendall and me to get up bright and early. Well, it was early, but we weren't feeling bright. I didn't want to get dressed in my new jeans. They were already uncomfortably tight around my tummy. I always seemed hungry now, especially in the evenings when Mum was out. I'd eat 3 bars of chocolate on the trot, or go on buttering slice after slice of bread until I polished off the whole loaf. I wanted to stay in my nightie and sit up in bed and stick stuff in my scrapbook. Miss Balsam had given me lots of her magazines. I was having fun snipping out heads and bodies and arms and legs and making new people on my page. Sometimes I invented strange new species with 6 arms or car wheels for feet. I'd cut the heads off the skinniest fashion models and stick them onto enormous elephants and whales. Come on, Lola Rose, stop that sticking and get washed, said Mum, snatching my scrapbook. She pulled her face. You're definitely sick, you. One warped, weird little kid. What's with the whale lady? Tell you what, she's a dead spit of your Auntie Barbara. Mum giggled and adjusted her jeans over her own tiny hips. Kendall wanted to stay in bed too. He was involved in a complicated game with George under the covers, swimming in their own dark private ocean. Mum fished him out and carried him squealing into the bathroom. I want 2 clean, charming, well-dressed kids, if you don't mind, she said. Why? I whined. It's Sunday. Exactly, said Mum. It's Sunday. Fun day. My Jake's coming round and we're all going out to have fun at Camden Lock Market. Kendall and I were going to need some convincing. We got washed and dressed sullenly. For God's sake, smile, said Mum, when Jake knocked on the door. She glanced at us anxiously, especially me. It was as if she was suddenly noticing how big I was. Jake came as a shock. He was good-looking in a scruffy sort of way. His fair hair was longer than mine, tied back in a ponytail. But he was young. I'd imagined this big artist guy in his 30s. Jake was an art student. He's much younger than you, Mum, I hissed in the ladies at Camden Lock. Not that much, said Mum. How much, I said. He's still at art college, isn't he? Look, you're acting like he's still at school. How old is he, Mum? It doesn't matter. Now shut up and get a move on. I want to look around all the stalls. It's great here, isn't it? Jake told me all about it. When we came out of the ladies, Jake and Kendall weren't there. We both stared at the wall where we'd left them, as if expecting them to rematerialise. The spot stayed empty. I clutched Mum's hand. They'll be in the gents, she said. Kendall wouldn't let any stranger take him to the toilet, I said. Kendall was weirdly private. He hollered if Mum or I happened to burst in when he was on the loo. He'd often hang on grimly rather than use public toilets. Sometimes he didn't make it in time. Jake isn't a stranger, Mum said crossly. She walked over to the gents. I followed her. We waited a minute. I started to feel sick. I must have gone white because Mum nudged me. It's okay, Lola Rose. For God's sake, they're just having a pee. She shouted through the door. Oi! Jake, Kendall, get a move on in there. Lola Rose is getting worried. No one answered. Mum swallowed, pulling her white jacket higher around her neck. Jake? Kendall, she shouted. A strange man came out of the toilet, grinning stupidly. You lost someone, darling? It's okay, it's just my boyfriend and my little boy. Maybe he's had a bit of an accident. There's no one in there, pet. What? Not even in the cubicle? There's only one, and I've just come out of it. Oh, God, said Mum. She looked at me. She chewed on her finger. Well, they've obviously gone for a little wander round. Boys, she said, trying to sound jaunty. She gave me another nudge because I was crying. Stop it. Kendall will be fine. He's with Jake. We don't know Jake. Not properly. And what if Dad tracked us down and saw them together? Maybe he's got Kenny. Oh, my God. They've killed Kenny, said the toilet guy, quoting South Park. Shut it, mate, said Mum. She pulled me away. What are we going to do? I looked at the heaving crowds in the market. How are we going to find them? We will. Just shut up. We shouldn't have left Kenny with Jake. Why did we have to go out with him anyway? He's not part of our family. He could be one day, said Mum. Don't look at me like that. And you were the one whining on about needing to go to the ladies. It was so awful thinking it was my fault. Kenny, I yelled. I rushed down the first little alleyway between the stalls. Kenny, where are you? Kenny! I'm Kendall, he said, bobbing up out of nowhere, laughing at me. Look what we've got, Lola Rose. Pancakes, yummy yum. Jammy crepes, said Jake. Kendall chose the jams. He's got blackcurrant for you, Lola Rose, because he says you like purple. I love pancakes. I love blackcurrant jam, but my stomach was so stirred up it was like swallowing an old sock. I only ate a mouthful and then threw it away. Mum glared at me. You mean little cow, she hissed. It was sweet of him to buy us pancakes. He hasn't got much money, Lola Rose. Seeing he's a student, you could at least act like you're grateful. You're showing me up. At least Kendall's behaving beautifully. That made me feel sicker than ever. Kendall was usually so shy and strange with anyone new. But now he was holding Jake's free hand, skipping along happily, George carefully tucked under his armpit. He was babbling non-stop, most of it nonsense. Send me and George saga. Jake wasn't even listening, but every time he gave a little grunt, Kendall's face lit up delightedly. Jake's other hand was holding Mum's. I wanted them to look ridiculous as a couple. They looked great together. Mum seemed so different when she was around Jake. When she was near Dad, Mum was always twitching, scared because the slightest thing could set him off. She was always glancing anxiously at him. She never dared look at anyone else. Dad went berserk if he thought she was eyeing up any of her men. But now Mum mucked about and giggled and sang little snatches of song. Heaps of men turned to look at her. Some of them said stuff. Mum waved and blew them kisses. Jake grinned and waved too. His new silver bangles slid up his slim arm when he waved. It was a present. Mum bought it for him. She bought me some sparkly stud earrings that looked like real diamonds. She bought Kendall a real wristwatch, even though he can't tell the time yet. She bought herself a moonstone pendant. She got Jake to fasten it around her neck, as if he'd bought it for her. Aren't moonstones meant to be unlucky, he said. Not on me. I'm Lady Luck, said Mum. Don't you like it? It's pretty, very pretty. You're pretty, said Jake. He kissed her neck, where he'd fastened the clasp. Look at Mum and Jake. They're kissing, said Kendall. It was obvious what was going to happen next. Chapter 10. Love and Kisses. Maybe it would be a good idea to rearrange the flat a bit, said Mum. I've been thinking, you and Kendall might like your own den, more of a play space. So how about us turning the bedroom into your room? It's purple too, your favourite colour. Lilac isn't purple. It's light purple, Miss Picky. Anyway, I was thinking of getting a little portable telly for you two. You'd like that, wouldn't you? Then the living room could be more, well, my room. And you want to put a socking great bed in it for you and Jake, I said coldly. No, I don't. Well, I was thinking about one of them sofa beds. Then if Jake should want to stay over, why can't he stay in his own place? He hasn't exactly got his own place, said Mum. He's staying with a friend at the moment. Why can't he get his own place then, I said. Because he hasn't got any money. He's a student. They give them rooms in the university, don't they? Only the first year. For God's sake, Lola Rose, give it a rest. He's coming to live with us, and that's that. I don't see why you've got such a problem with it. We're in love, can't you see? He doesn't love you. He's just shacking up with us because he hasn't got anywhere else. And you spend a fortune on him. Our fortune. Mum slapped me straight across the face. Kendall was watching. He cried. I didn't cry. I stared Mum out. You only slapped me because you know it's true. I slapped you because you're a spoilt little cow, Mum snapped. What's the matter with you, Lola Rose? You can't be jealous, can you? What, jealous of Jake? I folded my arms. She was asking for it. Well, he is more my age than yours. I stepped back smartly in case she tried another slap. She was meaner than that. Don't kid yourself you'll ever get a man like Jake, she said, looking me up and down. I didn't want her to see me cry. I slammed straight out of the house and down the path. I hoped she'd yell after me to come back, but she didn't. So I went on walking, though I didn't really know where I was going. I knew my way to school. I knew my way to the Chippy and the Chinese. I knew my way to Mum's pub. I knew my way to the video shop. And I knew my way to Harpreet's house. I could go and see Harpreet. She was my best friend now. We had our own special handshake and we each wore half of a friend's forever locket. We told each other all sorts of secrets. We had very long whispered conversations about sex and often ended up giggling helplessly. But I didn't want to tell her about Mum and Jake. It was the one thing I couldn't talk about, my family. Harpreet talked about her family all the time. She quarrelled with her brothers and sisters sometimes, and she argued a little bit with her mum and dad, but they never had a proper row. They never ever hit each other. I wished I'd been born part of Harpreet's family. I wished Harpreet's dad was my dad. I loved the way he put his arm around Harpreet and cuddled her close and called her his little girl. My dad had done all that with me. He called me all sorts of special things when he was in a good mood. I was his Princess Rosy Cheeks, his fairy doll, his JJ Jam donut. But the good mood could change to bad, and then he'd call me other stuff. Short, sharp, ugly words that stuck to me like slime. I couldn't imagine Harpreet's dad turning like that. I asked her once to tell me the very worst thing he'd ever done to her. She fought, and then she said, well, he shouted at her when she was little because she'd run into the road. She'd cried, and then he cried and gave her a great big hug. Harpreet laughed and said he was a silly softy old dad, though he could be horribly strict about bedtimes, and it didn't look like he was ever going to let her have a boyfriend. It seemed to me he was the best dad in the world. I wasn't so sure about Harpreet's mum. She wasn't really pretty, though. She had beautiful big eyes with long eyelashes. She had a way of rolling her eyes and sighing that made me nervous. She seemed to be quite friendly with my mum, but she rolled her eyes expressively afterwards. I don't think she liked it that my mum got on very well with Harpreet's dad. She never said anything, but she didn't need to. She just looked at my mum's hair, or her tight top, or her short skirt. She listened to my mum's giggle and her tales of what went on down the pub, and those eyes rolled like marbles. I'd hoped I'd grow up a little, and pretty like Mum. I so hoped it might happen when I turned into Lola Rose, but now I wondered how I'd kidded myself. Mum had made it obvious. I wasn't ever going to look like her. I'd end up like Auntie Barbara instead. I walked straight past Harpreet's house. I walked faster and faster, as if I was trying to run away from myself. I wasn't even sure who I was anymore. I couldn't believe how quickly Mum had settled into this new life. How could she fall in and out of love so easily? She acted like all those corny old love songs she sang, changing as quickly as a jukebox. She stood by her man, but he was so cruel, so it was all over, and she did her crying in the rain, and she could survive, but then she met this stranger, and then it was passionate kisses. I thought of Mum and Jake kissing. Then I heard kissing noises behind me, loud, slurpy, silly lip-smacking. It was a gang of boys hanging about outside the video shop. I knew one of them, a horrible boy called Peter, who was in my class at school. He kept trying to pull all the girls' skirts up. He had a very pink face and big nostrils and a flat nose. Harpreet and I called him Peter Piglet. "Give us a kiss then, Lola Rose," he called. I pulled a face at him. "Get lost, Peter Piglet," I said fiercely. Peter went pinker than ever. The other boys laughed and made me more kissing noises. They were mostly older than Peter. That Ross was with them. He was famous in Flexley Park. All the girls fancied him. He was only 13, but he got 16-year-old girls wanting to go out with him. He was looking at me too. "Yeah, fancy a snog, Lola Rose," he said. I didn't know if he was joking or not. The other boys were still making kissing noises. I hurtled down the street away from them. I ran and ran away from their raucous laughter. I tripped and fell over and they laughed more. I tore the knees of my new jeans and got the sleeves of my beautiful furry jacket dirty. I was sobbing by the time I got home. I wanted to make it up with Mum and have a cuddle with her, but Jake was there. "Where have you been, Lola Rose? Don't you dare flounce off like that. I've been dead worried about you. Are you crying?" "No." I tried to go into the bedroom, but she caught hold of me. "What's up with you? Look at the state of you, your new jeans and your jacket. Look at the cuffs. They're filthy." I cried more then, but Mum rubbed at it with a damp tea cloth and cleaned up both cuffs. The jeans were so badly ripped at the knees, she said she couldn't sew them. "Maybe I can," said Jake. I thought he was joking, but he cut up an old flowery shirt he said he didn't want anymore and made appliqued flower patches on both knees. "Wow," said Mum, ruffling Jake's hair. "You're a man of many talents." "Men don't sew," said Kendall. "He's a man all right," said Mum, kissing Jake. "That's brilliant. Will you do mine too, darling? Lola Rose, don't you just love your new jeans? What do you say to Jake?" "Thanks," I said, as if he'd simply passed me the cornflakes, but I was secretly thrilled. I watched carefully to see how he did the applique stitch. "I'll show you how to do it," said Jake. "It's okay," I said, shrugging. I'd already worked it out. I was determined not to be won over. I didn't see why Jake and I had to bond like superglue just because Mum was nuts about him. She kept nagging at me to show him my scrapbook. I caught her lugging it out of the bedroom to show him herself. I flew at her and tugged it out of her arms. "It's private," I shouted. "Ooh, what you got in there then, Lola Rose? You been sticking in mucky pictures?" The edge of my scrapbook had got bumped and the spine was torn a little in the struggle. I was furious. "You're the only one who let guys take mucky pictures," I said. Mum went fiery red, even flushing down her neck. "I never," she shouted like a little girl. "Mucky pictures," said Jake. "Oh, Victoria, you bad girl." "They weren't mucky," Mum protested. She gave me a shove. "I did some modelling once, that's all, glamour pics." "Glamour," said Jake, wiggling his eyebrows. "Oh, show me, show me." "They were in these mags ages ago. I threw them all out," Mum said quickly. She sighed, looking at Kendall and me. "When I was young, before the kids ruined my figure." "I think it's gorgeous," said Jake. Mum beamed and nodded her head at me, as if to say, "So there." "Why can't you be happy for me?" she hissed in bed that night. It looked like it was going to be the last night we were all tucked up together, Mum and Kendall and me. Jake had gone back to his mate's flat to gather his stuff together, have a few drinks. He was moving in with us tomorrow. I didn't reply. I pretended to be asleep, but Mum pulled me over onto her lap. "Do you really hate Jake?" she asked. "He's okay." "Oh, come on, he's flipping gorgeous, and he's so kind too. That's what I can't get over. Never loses his rag, never acts jealous. I thought you'd really landed me in it, going on about my glamour photos. But look how lovely he was. He's a man in a million, Lola Rose." "You've only known him 5 minutes, Mum." "I feel like I've known him all my life. The moment I set eyes on him, I knew. We clicked, just like that. You clicked with Dad. You clicked with the footballer. You clicked with any guys that going." I mumbled into the pillow. Mum heard me. "I'll kick you right out of this bed if you don't shut up," she said. But she couldn't shut up herself. "I couldn't wish for a sweeter guy. I never dreamed I could be so lucky. I'm getting on a bit now. I've got you 2 kids. My boobs are getting all saggy." "You're nuts," I said. "No, really." She sat up in bed and stuck her chest out, feeling herself. "Oh God, they are. I wonder how much a boob implant is. 1,000? More? I could afford it now." I snorted. What's your problem? It's my money and I've spent a fortune on you two. And Jake, I said. I bet he didn't buy his new cowboy boots himself, or that new mobile, or his new iPod, or that big set of oil paints. He's an artist, for God's sake. Mum peered down at her breasts. Maybe I'd better have that implant if he's going to do a nude portrait of me. Do you think it hurts terribly? Would they have to cut you right open? Oh no, of course not. They just unbutton your boobs, pop in the implant, and Bob's your uncle, I said sarcastically. You're so stupid, Mum. Of course they cut you open. They cut right along underneath and then... OK, don't go on about it, said Mum. Maybe I'll put up with my boobs the way they are. Jake doesn't seem to have any complaints. That's what I mean, Lola Rose. He's so good to me. You don't think I was better off with your dad, do you? I think you'd be better off without any bloke, I said. You're starting to sound just like your Auntie Barbara, said Mum. Watch out you don't start to look like her too. She started poking my tummy. Oh yes, podgy wodgy. Give over, I said. You stop that, saggy baggy. We tickled and poked, squealing with laughter. Kendall woke up and joined in. We had a wrestling match until Kendall fell right out of bed with a thump and the old lady downstairs started banging on her ceiling. We hauled Kendall back into bed and then the three of us cuddled up close. We went to sleep just like that. I didn't even have the shark dream. Chapter 11. Lipstick and high heels. Jake moved in with us. Mum turned the living room into their room. She bought them a brand new sofa bed. No community store's shabby old stuff this time. Mum bought a computer too. She pretended it was a present for Kendall and me, but it was Jake who sat at it all evening, playing games, while Mum was out working at the pub. Kendall liked to loll against him. Sometimes Jake let him have a go. What about you, Lola Rose? No thanks, it's boring, I said. I shut myself in my bedroom with my scrapbook. Mum had bought me a big pile of birthday cards, lovely flowers and seasides and sunsets and rainbows, and fairy princess ladies with very long curly hair. They were brand new birthday cards, specially for me to cut up and stick in my scrapbook. She bought them to stop me nagging her about the money. I'd found the envelope with the lottery winnings hidden under her tights. I'd peeped inside and panicked. There was hardly anything left. A fistful of £5 notes, that was all. I knelt there. Mum's tights squiggled all around me like black snakes. I felt so scared. I stayed up and tackled Mum about it when she got back from the pub. Shut up, Lola Rose, she said. She didn't want Jake to hear. How dare you nose around my things? She hissed in my ear. It's my money anyway. It was my lottery ticket. It's not anyone's money now. It's all gone. Gone on lovely things for all of us, said Mum. Now go to your bedroom this minute, you ungrateful little what's-it. I stormed off furiously. How could Mum be so stupid? What if she lost her job and couldn't get another? What if Jake started getting drunk and hitting her and we had to do another runner? The lottery money had made me feel so much safer. I decided I wasn't speaking to Mum anymore, but then she bought me the birthday cards and I couldn't stay cross. I spent hours cutting out and arranging and sticking. I wore a little groove at the side of my middle finger through gripping the scissors. Kendall teased me because my mouth opened and shut as I snipped. Like a fish, he said, and he made George attack me hungrily. I was so startled I snipped straight through my favourite fairy princess. I made a great fuss and Kendall cried. I decided I didn't care. I found an African Plains picture of giraffes and started creating a tribe of strange giraffe girls, their abundant hair tumbling down their long spotted necks. I called to Kendall, offering to tell him a giraffe girl fairy story. I'm busy, he shouted back triumphantly. I'm playing on the computer with Jake. I whispered bad swear words. Kendall liked being with Jake much more than being with me. So did Mum. They didn't seem to need me much anymore. I snipped at my magazine playing guillotines. Heads tumbled into my lap. I crumpled them all together and threw them into the far corner of the room. Well, I didn't need them. I didn't need anyone. I was Lola Rose. I just wished I looked more like my idea of Lola Rose. I mooned in front of the mirror, experimenting with ways of doing my hair. I hunched my shoulders right up under my ears so that my hair seemed longer. I tugged at it, encouraging it to grow. Maybe next month, or the month after, or the one after that, it would have grown right down my back, fairy princess style. I stole into the bathroom and squirted it with Mum's hairspray. Mum was so lucky having such thick hair. I could grow mine right down to the ground, but it would always stay thin and wispy. It lay limp against my head now, no matter how I tried to fluff it up. I gave up on my hair and tried my face. I'd mucked about with makeup before, putting glitter on my eyelids and gloss on my lips, but I'd always wiped it off when Dad was due home. He said he didn't like to see his little girl all tarted up. I could paint on makeup an inch thick now. I went crazy with Mum's makeup. I started properly with foundation, and then penciled in my eyebrows and smeared smoky grey on my eyelids. I outlined them with black pen, making it thicker whenever I wobbled. I put on 2 thick coats of mascara, so I saw black fringe curtains every time I looked up. Then I applied rouge on both cheeks. I knew you were supposed to follow the lines on your cheekbones, but my cheeks were so podgy I couldn't find my bones. At least I could see my lips. I attempted that special putting on lipstick smile, but I got red all over my teeth, so I invented my own method, going slightly over the edge of my lips to make them look more voluptuous. I hoped I looked much older. 12, 14, 16? I peeped in Mum's wardrobe and put on her high heels. We took nearly the same size now. I stuffed the ends of the shoes with tissues. I stuck more tissues inside one of her bras so that I had an impressive bust when I pulled on my tightest t-shirt. Jake and Kendall stared at me when I strutted into the living room. "My goodness, Lola Rose," said Jake. "She looks silly," said Kendall. "You are silly," I said. "I'm going out." "Hang on," said Jake. "Are you allowed out by yourself?" "I'm not going to be by myself. I'm meeting someone, like a date." "Oh, no, you're not," said Jake. "Oh, yes, I am," I said, rushing to the front door. Jake called to me to come back. "You can't tell me what to do," I shouted. "You're not my dad." I met Steve and Andy down the road, coming back from the shopping trip, laden with Marks and Spencer carrier bags. Well, Andy was laden, 2 bags in either hand. Steve was swanning along carrying a plant pot. He raised his eyebrows at me and walked on, Jasmine trailing decoratively down his arms. Andy stopped and balanced his shopping bags on the pavement. He mimed great delight to see me, clutching his heart. "Why, it's Lola Rose, looking gorgeous." "Hi, Andy," I said. I tried to make my voice sound husky and provocative, but it just sounded like I had a cold. "Hi, Lola Rose," he said, his own voice as gruff as he could get. I laughed, even though he was taking the mickey. I walked on down the road, though my ankles kept twisting in Mum's high heels. I decided to go round to Harpreet's house and show them off to her. I knocked at her door. I rang the bell too, in case they hadn't heard. "Shh," said Harpreet, opening the door. "My dad's having a nap." And then she looked at me properly. "Lola Rose! Can I come and play?" "Yeah, well, for a bit. My mum's cooking our dinner." The wonderful hot savoury smell of it made my mouth water. I hoped I might get invited to share it. Harpreet took me to their front room. Her little sister, Amandeep, was sitting cross-legged in a corner, muttering to her Barbie dolls. Her big brother Amrit was hunched over the computer. He nodded in my direction without taking his eyes off the screen. "Can I try your shoes on, Lola Rose?" Harpreet begged. "Sure," I said, slipping them off. Harpreet wobbled around, roaring with laughter every step. "Look, why don't you kids play shoe shops in another room?" said Amrit, sighing, and then he looked up and saw me. He stayed looking. He started telling me about the work he was doing on the computer. Then he went on about his football team at school. Then he started bragging about this band he and his mates had started up. He was the drummer. He didn't have his own drum kit, but he started beating out the rhythm on the wall. "Shut up, Amrit. You'll wake Dad," said Harpreet. "Dad's already awake," said Mr. Gabri, coming into the room in his socks. He yawned. His mouth stayed open when he saw me. "Good gracious, Lola Rose." "No, it's not Lola Rose at all, silly me. She's just a little girl. You're her big sister. Good afternoon, Miss Luck. I'm delighted to meet you." I knew he was just kidding around, but it was fun, and Harpreet and Amandeep giggled. Amrit looked irritated. "What's all this noise? Have you naughty children woken your poor father?" said Mrs. Gabri, putting her head around the door. Her eyes rolled when she saw me. "Does your mother know you're out like that, Lola Rose?" she said. "This isn't Lola Rose. This is Lola Rose's beautiful big sister," said Harpreet's dad. "May I offer you a sherry, Miss Luck? Would you care for a cigarette?" "Don't encourage her," said Mrs. Gabri crossly. "You better go home and wash your face, Lola Rose. Take those shoes off at once, Harpreet, and give them back to Lola Rose. Hurry up now. Dinner's nearly ready." "Can Lola Rose stay for dinner?" Harpreet asked. I looked at Mr. Gabri hopefully, but his eyes swiveled to his wife. "I'm sorry, dear," she said insincerely. "There isn't enough for another person." "Lola Rose can eat mine. I'll be having a pizza with my mates later," said Amrit. I smiled at him with my shiny red lips, but Mrs. Gabri wouldn't relent. "Nonsense," she snapped. "Lola Rose is going home for her own dinner now." She looked at me beadily. "You've got lipstick on your front teeth." I wanted to bite her with my stained teeth. I shrugged instead, pretending it was a totally cool new fashion to have bright red teeth. I stalked out of their house. I tripped going down their front path. I hoped they weren't watching. My feet were hurting in Mum's shoes. It felt like I was getting a blister. Several. I knew I should go home, but I'd only been gone half an hour. I'd never be able to convince Jake I'd had a real date. I couldn't convince myself. I could call myself Lola Rose until the cows came home, but I was still stuck being shy, soft old Janie. I was never going to get pretty and sparky and sexy like Mum. I was going to get bigger and blobbier and end up like Auntie Barbara, just as Mum said. Poor elephantine Auntie Barbara, who was so wibbly-wobbly that no man would ever want her. Maybe no man would ever want me. Amrit had acted like he was chatting me up, but maybe he was just having a laugh at me. The gang of boys were hanging around outside the video shop again. Ross was there, Peter Piglet too. I knew I should run away quickly. I didn't run. I walked towards them. They started making the kissing noises again, but I smiled this time. I walked right up to them, wobbling on Mum's high heels. You look daft in them shoes, said Peter, his pink nostrils going in and out as he breathed heavily. You are daft, in shoes or out of them, I said. I tried to sweep past him, but tripped. Whoopsie, said Ross, and he clutched my arm to steady me. He wasn't quite so good looking when you got close to him. His eyes were a little too close and his lips were too thin. I wasn't sure I wanted him hanging onto my arm. I tried to pull away. It's okay, I'm just helping you, he said. It's Lola Rose, isn't it? A tall boy in a torn t-shirt grinned. Lola Rose sat on a pin. Lola Rose. It wasn't funny, but they all fell about laughing. I knew they were laughing at me, but I grinned too. So you're in Pete's class, said Ross. You look older than him. I act older, I said, tossing my hair. He still had his hand on my arm. He wasn't gripping tight, but his fingers felt weird on my skin. I wasn't sure if I liked it or not. He was obviously the boss guy of the gang. He was the best looking. He was the one all the girls fancied. He was peering at me, head on one side. Where are you off to then, Lola Rose? He asked. I liked the way he kept saying my name. I loved being reminded I was this new glamorous girl. She was so much more grown up than silly old Janie. I smiled back at Ross. Nowhere special, I said casually. So, hang out with us, said Ross. Okay, I said, as if I couldn't really be bothered. I was fizzing inside. I wondered where we'd go. I hoped it might be McDonald's. I was starving hungry. Ross didn't seem to be thinking about food. We'll go down the park, he said, still smiling. All the boys sniggered. I took no notice. Ross was still smiling straight at me. His eyes were very blue with black lashes, and he had lovely smooth rosy skin. He was big too, with muscles, like he worked out. He could get any girl he wanted. He seemed to want me. Ross and his mates strode off towards this park. I trotted along behind them, finding it hard to keep up in Mum's heels. Piglet Pete hung back, keeping pace with me. I didn't want to be stuck with him. I wanted it to be a fairy tale. I looked almost pretty now I was Lola Rose. Maybe Ross wanted me to be his girlfriend. Push off, Pete, I said. Okay, he said, shrugging. He ran ahead and joined the others. Hey, Lola Rose, Ross called, peering back at me. Come on. He beckoned with his finger, making little kissing, encouraging noises. The boys all laughed. I didn't like the way Ross was acting. He wasn't treating me like I was a girl. He was calling to me like I was his little dog. I still followed him. It wasn't a proper park, just a scrubby patch of grass and a tangle of bushes used as a rubbish dump. There was some woman walking her dogs away in the distance, and an old man mumbling to himself, clutching a beer can, and all the boys making stupid noises. I wanted it to be just Ross and me in a beautiful big green park. We'd walk hand in hand, and he'd be looking at me with those big blue eyes and whisper lovely things. But this was all so different. I was stuck by the bushes with all these boys, and I didn't like it. It's getting late. I have to go home now, I said. No, you don't, Lola Rose. Come here. Ross bent his head and kissed me, right in front of the others. It wasn't gentle and loving, like he cared. He was just showing off. I struggled to get free, but he held me tight. I twisted my head away and started yelling. Shut up, you idiot, said Ross. I wouldn't shut up. I shouted. Let that girl go, someone called. Ross hung on to me, but some of the others started running. A dog started barking furiously, getting nearer. 2 dogs, leaping up at all of us. Huge Alsatians. Everyone was running now. I tried to run too, but I fell in my shoes. I huddled there on the grass, the dogs barking in my face, showing their sharp teeth. I started screaming. It's all right, Lola Rose. They won't hurt you. They just like to make a lot of noise, like me. I peered up past the 2 dogs. Miss Balsam was standing over me. Down, Beely. Down, Bus. Down, girls. Stop barking. You're giving us both a headache. Give your paws to Lola Rose and show her you want to be friends. The 2 dogs quietened. They sat up on their back legs and politely offered me their paws. I took each one gingerly, giving it a tiny shake. There, said Miss Balsam. See, I can control my dogs far better than I can control all you kids. Hello, Beely, I said, patting the dog's head. This one's Miss Beale and this one's Miss Buss. They were amazing women who ran a school for girls in Victorian times. I called my dogs after them. I've had them since they were 6 weeks old. They're getting on a bit now, but they can still make an impressive amount of noise. They scared off all the boys satisfactorily, didn't they? So, what was going on, Lola Rose? Oh, nothing, I mumbled. I slipped Mum's shoes on and struggled to stand up. Mrs. Balsam put her hands under my elbows and hauled me upright. Are those your friends? Sort of. I know the big lad, Ross. I used to teach him. He was a real handful. Do you like him? No, I said, wiping my lips with the back of my hand. Here. She fished in her pocket and found me a tissue. You're all smudged. Have a good wipe. Good God, you've got half of Boots' makeup counter all over your face. Don't you dare turn up at school like that. Or in those shoes. How do you walk in them? I can't. Not properly. They're my mum's. Doesn't she mind you borrowing her shoes? Well, she doesn't exactly know. Maybe you should scoot off home quick and put them back in her wardrobe. So, Mum's out then? Yeah, she works at the Coach and Horses? So is there anyone at home to look after you and Kendall? Oh yes, I said quickly. We've got Jake. He's your babysitter? Well, he's like Mum's boyfriend. And you get on all right? She asked, as we walked towards the park gates, Miss Beale and Miss Buss bounding after us. I shrugged. He's okay, I suppose. Did he say you could come out tonight? I told him I had a date. With Ross? No, I just met up with him and those others, and he asked me to come down the park. Did you think that was a good idea? Said Miss Balsam. Yes. No. Well, I didn't know they'd start messing about like that. A smart girl like you. Well, I suppose I went a little bit nuts because it was Ross. I mean, he's so good looking and that. It made me feel really special, like I was somebody. Miss Balsam stopped walking. She put her hands gently on my shoulders. She looked straight into my eyes. You are somebody, Lola Rose. You're a very special, clever, creative girl, and very mature for your age too. I'm very impressed with the way you look after Kendall. He's okay, is he? Yes, he likes being with Jake. They play computer games all the time. So do you feel a bit left out sometimes? No, well, sometimes, yeah. Lola Rose, I don't want to pry. I know there's probably a lot of stuff you don't want to talk about, but if ever you feel like a little chat, you know you can always come. Find me at school. Yes, I know. Thank you, Miss Balsam. She gave me a lift home in her car, me in the front, Miss Beale and Miss Buss barking like mad in the back. Miss Balsam nodded at me when I got out of the car. See you in school tomorrow. I saw Peter's in Ross's little gang. Do you want me to have a stern word with him? Better not. If you're really keen on getting a boyfriend, wouldn't Peter be a better bet than Ross? No fear. Miss Balsam chuckled. Oh dear. But I take your point. Bye for now then, Lola Rose. I hope you won't get into trouble for coming back late. I'll be fine, I said. And that is where we will leave part 4 of Lola Rose by Jacqueline Wilson. I'll be back soon with the next part of this fantastic story and lots more stories and videos coming your way very soon. If you'd like to subscribe or hit a like, that's always appreciated. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.